I spent a couple of years just purely bodybuilding. I got really strong, in the 6 to 8s, really strong. Then when I went to transfer it back into powerlifting, it was fucking horrible. I've always tried to explain it as, in bodybuilding, you're training a muscle. In strength sports, you're really training movements. But when it comes to accessories, we should actually be training muscles and be paying attention to what they're doing there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's a lot to be learned from that, right? Because I could say we don't necessarily need the mass that they're carrying.
For sure.
But we're also not going to do all the training that they're doing either. So to think that if we do a couple of movements like them, we're going to have their mass is like ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's why your body, one of the complaints of linear periodization, it's like the mass you gain as you start to specialize, you lose it because your body doesn't need all of it. It's more neurological, so all this excess mass, you're going to lose it anyways. If any of the biggest guys in their peak switched over to powerlifting, they'd probably come in, a few dozen pounds lighter than their stage weight because of the and that's where all that variety comes in, because the only way you get a muscle that big is if you nail it 18 ways from Sunday through all these different movement patterns.
One of the things because that happened when I was training that way, that always happened to me. So I would end up losing, I'm going to say 10 pounds. I'm not going to say it's 10 pounds of muscle because that's bullshit, but there's volumization. There's how much water and blood you're holding in the muscle from the time I would go through the hypertrophy phase to the peak phase. But it worked out perfect for me because it put me right in my weight class.
There you go.
So that kind of helped when I spent a couple of years just purely bodybuilding. I got really strong on my rep ranges of everything, in the 6 to 8s, really strong. Then when I went to transfer it back into powerlifting, it was fucking horrible. I wanted to kill myself. It was terrible. Where a bench, for example, say 405 or 12, would lead to a 455 barely being able to bench it, down from doing 500 before. And that's when Louis started to get my ear. It's like, what the fuck? You went up 30 pounds, you're in a new weight class and your lifts went to hell. I'm like, I did this bodybuilding shit. Like, I don't know. It should have, worked. And knowing better now, longer transference phase, it may have, it may have definitely worked, but just going right from one straight into the other wasn't a long enough period to allow that to happen.
Yeah, all those skills detrain quick, right? So it's like you're doing good work on this other end, but you're losing all that specific skill. And that freaks a lot of people out, I think. It freaks a lot of people out. But those skills come back super quick. I mean, I've had more comebacks than I can count. And that was one of the most freeing things I realized. Because when you first realize it, if you don't spend a couple weeks in the gym, you lose everything. The first time you realize that as a lifter, you have like an existential crisis. Like, oh, I thought this is just how strong I am now. But the most freeing thing was realizing how quickly they do come back. And that gives you the freedom to focus on these different things. And then that goes into this other point, talking about the bodybuilding training, the movement selection, the way you approach it. Absolutely. The training thresholds is something a lot of people don't really concern themselves with or don't think about too much. And that had so much impact on how I approach strongman, because strength, this general idea of strength is always there, but there's a big difference between, a max deadlift and a contest that has a 600-pound deadlift for reps. The same guy isn't going to win both. So I have a pretty good motor. I can't pull for shit. I'm built like a dachshund, I'm all torso, no limbs. If there was, I think the joke I made earlier, if there was such thing as a sumo overhead press, I'd be known for it. But geez, the rep ranges that we work in. I've been doing 100 reppers recently because I committed for hitting 100,000 subs. I committed, hey, I'll do a 100 rep squat. Just
tell me exactly what you mean by that. Like in a row?
Without racking the bar.
So
And
are you breathing? I mean, are you breathing in between holds?
I gave myself a time cap. Yeah, I'm not pulsing.
Yeah,
through.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm not turning it into a breathing squat either, where I'm taking through. I try to limit it to one breath in between each rep.
Okay.
So the last one took me about 5.5 minutes. So it was like,
fuck that.
It was like 16 to 20 reps per minute.
Yeah.
And that's the pace I don't want to go about. There's a couple guys I was chasing. It's on my bucket list. Is these 225 100 reppers. There's a couple people that have done it, and it usually I think Will Dinwiddie, who I competed with in strongman probably 10 years ago maybe, he did it in about 7 minutes, which, I mean, for 225 on your back, 100 reps unbroken, like that was pretty damn impressive. And I don't know how much, I'm sure some CrossFitter could probably give that a run for its money. I don't know. And I think a couple of the guys have done it since. There's this video going around of this guy, Sarge, that I think he used to train with the Sequim crew. I'm not sure about that. Jesse Miranda used to train in back in the day, but they were known for doing the gnarliest workouts for strongman. Stone loading into like tire flip type medleys, like for endurance. And these guys are 300 pounds and they're trying to do this stuff, pairing squatting and strongman movements. This is nutty stuff. But Sarge got like 98 reps with 225. I remember seeing that and I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So anyways, I volunteered to do that. I don't know why. So far I got 135, and next week I'm slated to go 155 and see where it goes from there. So it's just an example of these different rep ranges, these different thresholds. And in strongman, it's like, how to pair this consistent growth and strength. You can't just follow a powerlifting specific program. You can't just follow a basic strength program. That will help, of course, but that has to go with these other movements, yoke and stones and sandbags and dumbbells and all kinds of bullshit. And then it's this extra dimension. Okay, what threshold are you training it in? And my motor got pretty good over the years. And I was able to hang in something like a deadlift where there's guys, the real explosive guys, the real springy guys that are used to just popping into the weight. A lot of them don't like going double digits.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't like the way it feels. And if you're not willing to, get in the weeds and kind of live in that range, but you can absolutely, they diverge a bit, right? Having the biggest 1 rep max, that's not going to be the biggest rep number. It's not going to really say a lot about, well, can you handle volume or can you handle this threshold? So one of the reasons I love about sport, I hate half the movements. I mean, you train them, you suck at them, makes everything hurt. But that's what I love about it, is all these ranges and these movements of variety. And there's so much texture to it as far as what you can run through.
With a couple things here that I got to ask now is, I've noticed that through my powerlifting career, I've known people that one time at Westside, Louis wrote some article about this. There was one guy that benched 405 for 3, another guy that benched 405 for 1. But when it came to the raw bench, the 405 for one guy could bench like 525. The other one couldn't bench 475. So there is different abilities that are there.